All right, single mom and me again. We're talking about the youth, guys. Harley Richards. Again, we're going to talk about outreach and that this is actually something that I received and it has candy in it. I remember growing up as a kid and being told to check my candy for drugs and needles because my parents were concerned that there might even be a razor blade in them. And instead, there is a location less than a half mile away from my home handing out a literal drug pack for you to be able to utilize your illegal substances that I and any of you would get arrested for, all right down to a Jolly Rancher. Mind you, I made this sign. My son was in the room when I made this sign. Do you know how hard it is to explain to your child that you have no idea what 90% of this stuff is used for? And it is even funnier when he looks at you and says, Mom, that's because you're not a drug addict. 10 years old. We have Jolly Ranchers in a pack ready to go for use. I could walk out, I could give this to anybody, and this is everything that they need. Next thing you know, 10 minutes down the road, they're overdosed. They're that neighbor. I had that neighbor not even 2.5 weeks ago. Mr. Knox, he was clean for 6 weeks. He received his 6 weeks chip. He went to that home that I was speaking of earlier, 71 Boothby Street, also a counterpart of the outreach programs that I am talking about. And he got the drugs that he used, where he then went back to work, and his cousin found him about 30 minutes later, blue in the face, dead on the scene. I had to witness that. My neighbors had to witness that, and the children that live on the road had to witness that. Little do we know, it could have come from this. This is not outreach. This is not help. This is a problem.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment?
It gets shorter and shorter. Tim Bodner. I have people that come to me and they tell me a lot of things. And, I'm trying to be the best investigative reporter I can be and not run with things that are unverified, right? But when you hear of things that are getting swept under the rug, and when you hear about things that are not working, I just think that sometimes we need to be willing to look at defunding some things that don't work. I mean, we're real good at throwing money at things, but being discerning and saying what doesn't work and pull funding back and redirect it might be something you might all think about.
Thank you. We're on 26116, which is the proposed grant to the Augusta Teen Center Boys and Girls Club. Is there further public comment? All right, next is 26117, please.
26-117, Mayor and Council. Whereas the City Council has reviewed and considered the recommendations of the Opioid Settlement Funds Task Force previously presented to the City Council relating to applications for grant funds from the city's Opioid Settlement Fund, now therefore be it ordered that in accordance with the recommendation of the Opioid Settlement Task Force and adopted city policy, the City Council hereby awards a grant in the amount of $50,000 to the HFGC Recovery Network to fund its proposed Anthony Avenue Recovery Stabilization Project. Be it further ordered that this grant award is subject to the awardee's entry into a grant agreement with the city in a form acceptable to Corporation Council.
Thank you for that. The gist of this one, $50,000 to the HFGC Recovery Network to fund its proposed Anthony Avenue Recovery Stabilization Project. If my information is correct, that received a 4-1 vote in favor of recommending this grant to the council. I invite public comment.
Good evening. My name is Monica Doobie. I am the Chief Administrator and Director of Services for HFGC Recovery Network. This is for a 14-bed detox, inpatient detox, to get people over that initial period that is so difficult to get past. I, as a resident of Augusta, am very for this. I think it'll be a great step for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to offer public comment on 26117?
Charlie Richards. I just have a question, I guess. If we're talking about this facility, what is the follow-up plan after they've finished this program? Do we kick them back out onto the street where they have access to all this stuff again? Do we put them into another state-funded home? What is the follow-up? Because that's where we fail. That is where we fail all these people. It is not, no matter how many beds we put in, no matter how many buildings we put up, until we actually have a plan to help these people remain stable. Again, I am talking to you as a daughter of 2 addicts. My mom went through the CARE program. Some of you might be very familiar with it. It's actually run through the Knox jail. My mom was one of the first people to graduate from that program. She was clean and sober for 4 years until she made it to the street. And now she's not. So that is my question. What is our follow-up? Where are we going with this? We're cleaning them up. We're detoxing them. We're getting them better. But what are we doing after? We're giving them state money, giving them government funding, saying good luck. That is not solving a problem. So I want to know what's going into the center for afterwards. Are we setting up counseling appointments for these patients? Are we setting up home visits? Are we making sure that they have family that is by their side to ensure that they stay clean for a certain amount of time? My neighbor of 71 Boothby, who is in court-appointed rehab right now, I want to use those words very, very lightly, court-appointed. She comes home Saturday. I feel those drugs are coming right back with her, because that is what happens when you do not have the follow-up. You're making these people do this, but you're not watching them 24/7. So that's my question. If you have the answer, I'm happy to listen to it. What is the follow-up from this center that's taking this money?
So you may.
Thank you.
We're,
So in response to that, we have a real-time bed availability coordination plan, as well as direct intake and administrative bridging, meaning that we are going to use the MAR registry as well as other networking advantages to have live time bed availability to know where the beds are. And then we're going to have staff dedicated to move forward with side-by-side assistance whenever someone's ready for that next step, so that they have the care they need. Say that again?
all right. Maybe it was my mistake allowing to answer a question. We're not going to have this public debate among audience members.
I am more than willing to answer any questions afterward.
That would be great. Is there any other public comment with respect to 26117?
Bodner, it's hard. I forget what I'm going to say by the time I get up here, you know. I have concerns that I think there are some really good forces trying to do some really good things. Obviously, we've all got a problem. Something's got to be done about it, right? Somebody's got to do something, right? The problem is I think we've got situations where we've got a certain group of opioid money over here fighting against a certain group of opioid money over here, right? And when somebody gets out of treatment and 3 hours later walks into the MERAP Access Center and is stoned and then runs out after her boyfriend gets hit by a car, and I'm not even sure if it was recorded or not, and then they clean up the bottle afterwards. You have a problem where people are saying, I mean, I got sober houses saying, we don't send people to the MERAP Access Center because you can't have that existing and coexisting in the same space. Because people that actually want to stay sober, want to do better, want to go on some path out, as you say there is, can't do that. Cut the cancer out.
Is there any further public comment on this order? Okay. Next is 26118. Clerk.
26-118, Mayor and Council, Whereas the City Council has reviewed and considered the recommendations of the Opioid Settlement Funds Task Force previously presented to the City Council relating to applications for grant funds from the city's opioid settlement fund. Now therefore be it ordered that in accordance with the recommendation of the Opioid Settlement Fund Task Force and adopted city policy, the City Council hereby awards a grant in the amount of $50,000 to Zisk Recovery Partners to fund its proposed purchase of a van. Be it further ordered that this grant award is subject to the awardee's entry into a grant agreement with the city in a form acceptable to Corporation Council.
And thank you. Is there public comment?
Tim Bodnar. There's a culture of intimidation. There are people that came to me that wanted to form a shadow task force, and I thought it was a really good idea. But there are people that are literally afraid of speaking out against Courtney, Gary, Alan, because they'll get cut off. They won't get the money. They won't get the favorable treatment. They won't get the right meetings with the right politicians. You got a problem. I'm done for the night. You want to go home? Thank you for your attention. Try and be nice to you, but the reason we get really loud, guys, is because you ain't listening.
All right. Again, this is 26118. And this, with respect to the $50,000 to Zisk Recovery Partners to fund its proposed purchase of a van. This had a form of the recommendation from the task force was 3 members in favor and 2 opposed. Is there any further public comment? All right, we will move on then to 26119, right? Okay.
26-119, Mayor and Council. Whereas the City Council has reviewed and considered the recommendations of the Opioid Settlement Funds Task Force previously presented to the City Council relating to applications for grant funds from the city's opioid settlement fund. Now therefore be it ordered that in accordance with the recommendation of the Opioid Settlement Funds Task Force and adopted city policy, the City Council hereby awards a grant in the amount of $14,750 to Zisk Recovery Partners to fund its proposed recovery support program. Be it further ordered that this grant award is subject to the awardee's entry into a grant agreement with the city in a form acceptable to Corporation Council.
All right. Again, this is 14750 to Zisk Recovery Partners to fund its proposed recovery support program. This came to us with a recommendation from the task force, 3 members in favor and 2 opposed. Is there public comment? Okay. 26120, please.
26-120, Mayor and Councilor Lind. Whereas the City Council has reviewed and considered the recommendations of the Opioid Settlement Funds Task Force previously presented to the City Council relating to applications for grant funds from the city's opioid settlement fund. Now, therefore, be it ordered that the City Council hereby awards a grant in the amount of $8,686.65 to Zisk Recovery Partners to fund its proposal for a curriculum expansion of the Augusta Intensive Outpatient Program.
Okay. This one, again, pertains to a proposed grant in the amount of $8,686.65 to Zisk Recovery Partners to fund its proposal for a curriculum expansion of the Augusta Intensive Outpatient Program. With respect to the task force recommendation, their recommendation was 2 in favor, 3 opposed to awarding this grant. So it came with a negative recommendation. Is there public comment? Right. Finally, of these series of recommendations is 26121.
26-121, Mayor and Councilor Lind. Whereas the City Council has reviewed and considered the recommendations of the Opioid Settlement Funds Task Force previously presented to the City Council relating to applications for grant funds from the city's opioid settlement fund. Now therefore be it ordered that the City Council hereby awards a grant in the amount of $50,000 to Access Direct Recovery Network to fund its proposed expansion of the Growth Helps Healing Project.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Finally, this is proposed $50,000 to the Access Direct Recovery Network to fund its proposed expansion of the Growth Helps Healings Project. With respect to this request, the task force was unanimous in its recommendation that this request be declined, as it did not meet minimum requirements for the request. Nevertheless, we'll open it up for public comment. Ms. Rennie?
Nick, Augusta, I mean, this all ties together, so really doesn't matter. The thing is that I've been coming to this city council for ongoing, about a year now? The first time I came in here, I handed you a bag. That bag was handed to me by a homeless individual that doesn't like what he sees on the other side. He doesn't like being associated with that type of homelessness. That's when I first started coming. It's led to a PFA, and it's led to now this, to finally get you guys' attention. Mayor, is this what you want to be remembered as? Is this what you want everyone to remember when you were mayor? You don't want to be Miss Muffy. You don't want your term to be like Miss Muffy. You have the power to do something. You have the power to be the hero that Augusta wants you to be. Do it.
Mr. Blanchard, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
It's against my better judgment to ask the question, but what is it that you would have me personally do?
It's not mine. Honestly, I don't know. You know,
Okay.
I get asked that all the time. What is the solution? You know what? I'm not sitting in those seats. My job is to show you when a policy has failed. And obviously, this policy has failed. Let me read you some numbers, right? The first 30 days of the Access Center. They
No,
reported.
I knew I would regret it.
Yeah, you did. You should. I was going to walk off. They reported over 1,200 visits, right? 1,200 visits in 30 days. 13 people linked to treatment. That sound like it's working? Later, 89 people. No treatment, no housing. There's no data on anything that happens after that, whether or not, they're actually getting jobs, becoming successful residents, nothing. I know, you should have just let me walk off. You guys have a good night.
Thank you.
I'm the landlord. I live in China. I have houses in Augusta. I used to live in Augusta, but I left Augusta because of the situation. I am watching what's happening on Boothby Street. The Access Center is 2 blocks away. The people that work there are in the drug house on my block. There is a homeless encampment up behind our houses, and the trail leads right to the drug house. We have called APD many times, and their hands are tied. They can't move them. They can't help us. They come, and even the drug addicts at OD come back that night. They go to the hospital and they're back. It's just a revolving door. So the dispatch office told my tenant, go to public, go public. So we got Nick involved. And that's where we sit and we stand behind him. But who's going to take care of this? You said, what would you like what you guys should do? What APD can't do anything. Who do we go to? Who helps us?
I don't know, we're trying different things.
So what you're trying is really not working. We went down to the park before the meeting. We were driving around. She noticed a cap from one of those bags that they handed out. And what's the sign right in front of it? Drug-free zone. So nothing's working here. So we need a better solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you guys doing tonight? Lisa Gagné. So when you say that the Access Center has helped and linked people to treatment or housing, treatment, what sort of treatment is that? Do you guys know? What kind of treatment? Is it inpatient treatment? Is it detox? Is it inpatient treatment? What is it? Does anybody have any answers?
I don't know, but it's
No.
not the subject of the
And do you
public
know how
comment.
many inpatient treatment centers we have in Maine? That's Maine Care connected? Like a handful. So when I see 13 people treatment, 89 people connected to treatment, where? Because I can tell you right now, I have a very personal experience. I found a family member on their deathbed, dying from alcoholism. The state of Maine failed them in many different ways. I don't have the time to tell you every single part of this story. But what I can tell you is I had to send my family member out of state to New Hampshire to get inpatient treatment because there's really no options here in Maine. And if there is, there are waiting lists. Okay? So this is what's going on in Maine. There's a revolving door. You put the people in detox, and then they get out of detox. Where are you sending them? You're sending them to sober living, right? Okay, sober living, they're not always connected to programs, correct? Right. So they're going to use again. It's a revolving door. You're skipping the most important part, inpatient treatment. And to boot, I had the social workers telling me at Maine General, the system's broken. Sorry. So at the end of the detox, if there's no place to send them, because according to these statistics, you guys send people into treatment all the time. If there's nobody to take him, where is he going to go? He's homeless. He has no job. He's in psychosis from alcoholism to the point he's hallucinating for months. Where are you going to put him? Out on the street. That was the answer. Out on the street. So praise Jesus, we have the means to do it. So we send him out of state, and we had to pay out of pocket to save his life because the state of Maine couldn't do it. Yet we're paying taxes. Yet these people here are getting $50,000 for a van, $8,000 for this. What are we doing? My family member has paid taxes to the state of Maine, has done everything that he's supposed to do. Everyone from EMS to law enforcement failed him. And if it wasn't for me, he would be dead. So again, when I see these statistics and I see the 1-year anniversary of the Access Center and having a bouncy house and interviews with a gentleman that says, yeah, I'm in rehab right now. No, sir, you're not in rehab right now, because if you were in rehab, you can't leave and go to a party and then go back to rehab. You're in rehab for 30 plus days. It's not working. You can please stop smiling because you're part of the problem. That's my story. I'm sorry.
All right, is there any further public comment? Is there any further public comment with respect to 26121, please? Go ahead.
Harley Richards, again, I know I keep stepping on this pedestal or stepping up here and saying this, but single mom. And I really do want to make a change, like a lot of us in the community do. I think the problem is that a lot of us are becoming frustrated because, and I can almost guarantee that by looking at all of you and seeing your facial expressions, that you have stood in our shoes. You have a family member that has alcoholism, that may have a heroin addict, or, could have schizophrenia, endometriosis. Let's name off all the chronic illnesses. It's not just a drug problem. However, the place that we can make a difference is here. We really need, and I know I already mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again. We need to know what we're going to do for these people after we get them cleaned up, after we get them everything that they need. Who's going to help them budget? Who's going to help them make sure they have food on their table? Who's going to make sure they get rides down to the food pantry? It's all going to come out of a state dime. It's going to come from the $50,000 that go to the van. In my eyes, I go, okay, cool, a van. What is that van used for? Guaranteed grocery runs, doctor's appointments, perfect. But now let's talk about what we want to do for our community. We all love a good concert. Okay, what's at concerts? Alcohol, drugs, marijuana, you name it. Okay? Now you're bringing all these people out into the public as this outreach program, but really all you're doing is taking the people that are within these facilities, showing them off, saying, look at them, they're clean, and then throwing them out on the street where we have to clean up after them, quite literally. Needles on my front step, overdoses on my front step. Again, you are happy to look it up, Boothby Street, 3 overdoses in the last 3 weeks alone, one of them being fatal. There is a problem. All of these people were part of the outreach center. Notice I did not say the access center. They're also part of the access center. These people work together. It is street living. If you do not help one another, you do not protect your back, or you don't help protect theirs, they will not protect yours. That is why I stand. If they are going to be getting this funding and you want that outreach program, put it from volunteers. Take Joe Schmo off the street like you and I and put us out there and really get out there and know what's going on and determine what we're going to do. Because a 30-day detox center from Miss Smirky Smirk over here is not going to change what happens for the following 30 days when they get done. What's going to happen is they're going to end up at our back door. They're going to end up on your front step. I have offered myself to take the encampment to 90% of the people that are sitting in this room, your front door. And I'm happy to do it because it's not on mine. Mind you, they're in a completely legal spot because it is city property. I have zero say in what they do here. All I know is that my little one cannot go outside without me by his side. I encourage you to go online. There's a 3-year-old in the past 8 days that was walking a public boardwalk in the state of Maine and got stuck by one of these needles. And I want you to keep that in mind because that is our city now. And again, I'm happy to talk to any of you. I'm happy to walk with you through town. I am doing it myself because APD won't help. Again, I'm not getting paid. I'm just a single mom that wants better for her son. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Honor. Yes.
We have a public comment from somebody from Zisk. If you would allow me to read it, they have kids at home, so they asked me to read it instead of trying to. It's from Ben Skillings, and I'm going to read it from here. Harm reduction and needle access is an integral part of the continuum of care for people with substance use disorder. It can save lives, thousands of dollars in hospital bills, and give folks an access point to enter recovery and find housing and stability. In New York City, they pay people in recovery to clean the parks of needles, and the program works quite well. Harm reduction includes smoke detectors, seatbelts, and other obvious ways to save lives and prevent injury. It's a no-brainer to continue these services. We are dedicated to providing more residential treatment beds, employment opportunities, family reunification on other ends of the harm reduction spectrum. It's all hard reduction. Sobriety is harm reduction. People are confused and prejudiced by the terms, but anything we do to prevent death and injury is harm reduction.
All right. Thank you. I'll let you come up if you want to speak to this specific order.
It's the one that they're still talking. They mentioned their parents.
All right, I'll give you 2 minutes.
I don't even need 2 minutes, sir.
Yep.
Again, Harley Richards, they mentioned their parents. We're going to talk about the Jolly Ranchers. I brought these up earlier. You all know what they look like. Yeah, you can do drugs, yay. Okay. I just want to read the card that's on the inside. Now, this is coming from the Access Center as a devil's advocate right now. The last thing we want is for our loved ones to die on the streets alone, okay? However, I want to advertise for them, because that's what this is advertisement for drug use. Those who use alone can die alone. Everyone needs a safety plan, so let's be a part of yours. Sounds great, right? Perfect. Flip it over. This is what we're getting in our city. I'm going to read this, and then I'll be done, sir. There are times you may find yourself using alone. Maybe your partner went to pick up, maybe your bestie is hooking up, or maybe you just don't feel like sharing your stash. That's okay. Call us 24/7 for a safe spot to keep you safe while you use on your terms. This is what we are giving our people after we leave those detox centers. Maybe they don't want to use. Maybe they have the urge to use. Okay, cool. I'm an addict. I'm in recovery. My friend just gave me this, said good luck. I just saw this and went, wow, you know what? Actually, I'm not alone. Great. I'm going to go get high now. Obviously, I'm not, but that's my point.
Got it? Thank you. All right, we're still on 26121. Is there any further public comment? All right, changing the subject. Oh, please.
Directly on 126. William Clardy, Augusta, city resident. Just was having a random thought, and this is not directly attached to this particular item, but to the whole topic that seems to be a comment for discussion. Your question to Mr. Blanchard of what would he have you do? Could I offer just a random, way outside the box suggestion that all these people who are coming up complaining and addressing all these shortcomings of the programs and policies that you're getting ready to fund, perhaps it would be a good idea to form an ad hoc citizens devil's advocate committee tasked with coming up with legitimate counterproposals to address those shortcomings, made up of volunteers who are unhappy with those proposals. Let them meet, give them a deadline to come up with legitimate counter policies or additional policies and present them. Just because, as Mr. Blanchard said, from the outside, it's not, he doesn't see it as his job to come up with solutions. Give him a seat at a table where it is his job and see what they come up with. Free advice, worth every penny that you're not paying for it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, we're going to change the subject now. 26122, please.
26-122, City Manager. Be it ordered that the city manager be and hereby is authorized to execute a term sheet with Hatch Hill Power LLC in relation to the operation of a landfill gas to energy generator at Hatch Hill in a form approved by Corporation Council.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? All right, just a word before we move on. We've had a lot of public comment on these items. For those of you who may not be familiar with the process, we go through the entire agenda with public comment, and then we come back to the top of the agenda, and the council takes action on these items in the order that they're presented. So we'll revisit these subjects when the council debates and votes. So with that, let me return back to 26122, which is the Hatch Hill Power LLC term sheet. Is there any public comment? All right, the next portion of the agenda is old business. Ordinance is being read for the second time, so there'll be a vote required tonight. Next is 26105.
26-105, Mayor and Councilor Morris Polly. Whereas pursuant to the city charter of the City of Augusta and 30A MRS subsection 4356, the City Council has the authority to enact moratoria to prevent serious harm to the public health, safety, and welfare of its residents. And whereas the City Council finds that the establishment, expansion, or operation of hypodermic apparatus exchange services or programs, needle exchanges, by individuals or entities have significant public health, safety, and community impact. And whereas the city's existing ordinances do not currently address or regulate needle exchanges and are inadequate to prevent serious public harm that may result from the establishment, expansion, or operation of needle exchanges in the city. And whereas the City Council finds that a temporary moratorium is necessary to allow sufficient time for the City Council, Planning Board, and city staff to review, evaluate, and if necessary, develop appropriate amendments to the city's existing ordinances to impose standards for the permitting, location, and operation of needle exchanges. And whereas, in the judgment of the City Council, all of the foregoing necessitates the adoption of a temporary moratorium.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Lind.
move to waive for the reading of item 26-105 with consent.
Let me ask if there's any objection. Seeing none, the motion's adopted by unanimous consent, so further reading of this order is waived. This is the second reading on a proposed moratorium on the permitting, licensing, establishment, or operation of new needle exchanges and the expansion of existing needle exchanges within the city of Augusta. Is there public comment?
Harley Richards. I got this from the Access Center. I want to tell you, and again, you can go online, you can find it. A woman stated to Nick yesterday that she spent a week and a half cleaning up needles from the homeless encampment that I was telling you about. Now, these needle exchanges are great, whatever. However, most people are not like you and I and are not going to do what I am about to do. And I want you to acknowledge what I am about to do, because I can guarantee that the user that is sitting outside of the tattoo shop, the soup kitchen, the Access Center, all of it, are not going to properly dispose of the needles in which they utilized. I utilized these, I'm going to properly dispose of them. Please remember that all of these Access Centers that handle these needle exchange programs do not provide any type of knowledge for this bucket. They handed it to me and said, good luck. Thank goodness I actually am a certified nursing assistant for the state of Maine. I have been for 12 years. So I am not shy when it comes to this stuff. However, that could be on your front door. But tonight, they're going in a bin. Guaranteed that if I were not here making this point, these needles would have been into an addict's hands yesterday, this morning, and be sitting on a sidewalk in a trash can where those genuinely homeless people, homelessness is a real thing. I am not here to shame homelessness. Those people that are looking for bottles to pay for their food are getting pricked. People are returning bottles and getting pricked. People are going through and just walking alongside with their kid, their 3-year-old, enjoying a day by the river, and they're getting pricked. So I want you to remember that as you vote and as you talk about this needle exchange. Who is this helping? Because I can tell you right now, if I went to my parents' house with over 100 needles, that would not help their addiction problem. It might give them a ticket. That's what they call it down here at the Access Center, a ticket to be able to get something. You know what I could get with that? A loaf of bread, maybe a package of cheese. It's great. Perfect incentive for if you're homeless and you're hungry. But what is happening here? Because I can tell you right now, they're not providing the knowledge. They're just providing the supplies.
So I'm going to piggyback off of that just because I can tell you exactly what they're going to do. This is right out back, right out here, yesterday. Here's needles right next to a bin that they're supposed to go in after being used. They're not in the bin, they're laying on the ground. And guess what? You look over, the woman was laying on the ground talking to herself, having an argument. This is at the park where kids are walking by, right outside these walls. You ask me, what should you do? One night, let's take a walk. Let's walk through Augusta, and I can show you what it looks like at nighttime. And then maybe we can figure out what to do. And we call this a needle exchange. Did you walk in with any needles? So what are we exchanging? Because it looks like we're just handing them out. I had someone reach out to me last week. Her father was having problems getting insulin. Whatever the technicalities, whatever it is. But he was having a hard time getting insulin, an elderly man, something that he needs to stay alive. Meanwhile, you can walk right down the street and get all this. Crack pipes. Like I said, I understand the Narcan. I understand certain other things. But keeping people comfortable in addiction isn't love, it isn't compassion. And they're not going to come out of addiction being comfortable. The only way someone wants help is when they're uncomfortable. Recovery is not for everybody. You have to want recovery. They're not going to want recovery when they're comfortable. We're killing people. We're not saving them. Like I said, Mayor, be the hero that we want you to be.
Hello.
Hi.
My name's Grace Norton. I'm a resident of Augusta. I'm also a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I work with patients with substance use and mental health disorders. As many of you know, safe syringe or needle programs were created as a harm reduction technique to lower the risk of disease transmission for individuals who are at times injecting substances via the IV route. The risks of reusing a needle include contracting various bacterial infections or blood-borne viruses such as Hep C, Hep B, and HIV. A used needle is medical waste, and it poses a risk to anyone that it may come in contact with. As medical waste, it should be handled and disposed as such. With medical waste like this being left out in the community, we worry about a needle inadvertently sticking another person. Maybe they're out raking leaves or not wearing the proper footwear, and we would call this a needle stick injury or an NSI. There's a protocol for an NSI. First, you should wash the site with soap and water. Then you're going to go to the ED and tell them what happened. Then you're going to get blood tests and you're going to wait. You're probably going to have a prophylactic course of antibiotics. Then you're going to go back in 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, and you're going to get blood tests and you're going to wait for those results. The risk of transmission of a blood-borne disease relies on a number of factors. So if we're looking simply at statistics, the numbers are relatively small. But there is a large psychological factor to this whole process as well. While you're thinking, what diseases could the person who used this needle possibly be carrying? The act of getting the blood draw, waiting for the results, going back again, getting another blood draw, waiting for those results. These are not small feelings. Needle exchanges are a harm reduction resource that does great things for a very specific population of individuals. We currently have seen a reduction in Hep C in Central Maine. Medicine has made great strides in the treatment as well. It's become more tolerable for patients and more accessible for healthcare professionals to provide. I fully support a moratorium on the expansion of existing or development of new safe syringe programs in our city until there are safeguards in place that lower the risk to our community. I look forward to exploring safeguards, and I'm happy to participate in finding solutions that take into account the diverse needs we have here in Augusta. Thanks.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Good evening, Mayor O'Brien, council members. My name's Bill Downing. I'm an Augusta resident. It's been an interesting meeting this evening. I just want to rise to compliment the work on the work of the opioid task force. There's been comments about, gee, this money could be spent better elsewhere. I'd like to go back a little bit in history to where the funds come from. A company known as Purdue Pharma was found to have made millions and billions of dollars off of selling opioids and working, lobbying extensively and indeed excessively, eventually it came out, in order to market opioids. So to set the record, I'm a taxpayer for the city of Augusta, as most of us are, and that's not taxpayer money that is going to the task force funding initiatives, which they have reviewed. They've done homework, and I congratulate them. And now to address the motion that's up here, I want to compliment the city council because there's a lot of emotions. This is life and death stuff. And I want to compliment the city council for the fact that they are looking to address some of the issues that are coming forth with this moratorium. So, I rise in support of the moratorium. Having said that, I'm keenly aware that we are in a political season. I shouldn't screen scroll, but I do. And the fact of the matter is that there are people with a very, in my opinion, dishonest, non-transparent, cynical agenda that are bringing forward harm reduction, the efforts issue as a black and white issue, and it's not. It's complex. Just recently, there was an article in the Atlantic magazine talking about the experience of Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon, and other West Coast communities that are looking to rebalance the issues around needle exchange, harm reduction, treatment and recovery. It's an ongoing thing. It's a situation that over the arc of 100 years really has been an issue. And 100 years, well, for folks that follow history at all, the Opium Wars were even a lot further ago than that. But I'm sorry, to bring it back in, again, I want to compliment the City Council. I will make an additional comment that I think taking one recovery center and making it a lightning rod or the boogeyman is exactly the wrong path to go dealing with issues of, again, addiction and recovery. It's complicated. It's personal. It's 100 individual choices that people make that end up in the aggregate, community issues that are not being unaddressed, but community issues where you have a preset agenda and expectation where you come in and you say, I need a solution from you. And that is anecdotal, not supported by data. There's too much of that going on in government. And at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level. And
Mr. I need to have you
wrap it up, yeah. Again, I just wanted to offer those comments on the record for this evening's meeting. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right. We're still in the open comment, public comment period with respect to the proposed moratorium. Further public comment?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Reagan La Rochelle, and I'm here tonight in my role as the board chair of the Maine Recovery Access Project. I want to acknowledge that we all share the same goals: clean public spaces, safe neighborhoods, and a healthier Augusta for everyone. At the same time, we respectfully oppose the proposed moratorium on new syringe service programs in Augusta. We appreciate the opportunity that we had just 2 weeks ago to share with you the successes of our first year operating the Access Center on Water Street. We intentionally chose the basement of the Edwards Inn because we wanted to create a place where people who are too often left outside could be welcomed indoors. A place to find connection, resources, recovery support, and hope. In our first year alone, 1,093 unique individuals came through the doors, resulting in more than 16,700 visits. The challenges our community is facing, especially in downtown, did not begin a year ago. Syringe litter is not new. Homelessness is not new. And substance use is not new. Our community has been facing complex issues that existed long before we opened our doors. But since opening, we are doing our part. In just 1 year, our volunteers have organized 80 community cleanups, removing thousands of pounds of trash from our neighborhoods. We connected more than 100 people to treatment or housing. We distributed 5,234 doses of naloxone in our efforts to save lives. In 1 year, we distributed 21,950 sterile syringes while collecting 37,840 used syringes for proper disposal. That's a net 16,000 syringes out of our community. Every syringe returned is one less syringe left in a park or on a sidewalk. Syringe service programs are the first line of defense against syringe waste. They provide safe disposal, educate participants on proper disposal, and actively collect used syringes every single day. Restricting these programs does not address syringe litter. It risks reducing one of the very tools that helps prevent it. When the Access Center presented to the Council, Mayor, you asked an important question about accidental needle stick injuries, and that concern is completely understandable. The prior speaker just talked about data and the importance of using data, and so here's the data that we found. The CDC guidelines for 2025 indicate that there are no known documented cases of HIV transmission from discarded needles found in community settings, period. The risk is considered extremely low because the virus does not survive long outside of the body. None of this is to suggest that syringe litter is not a problem, but the wording of this moratorium is harmful and incredibly misleading when describing needle exchanges and discarded syringes. And implementing a moratorium will not do anything to reduce syringe waste. In fact, it will do the opposite. If our shared goal is truly fewer syringes in parks, on sidewalks, and in our neighborhoods, then the solution is to strengthen the strategies that are proven to work rather than restricting them. That means expanding public sharps disposal options, supporting community cleanup efforts, and continuing to partner with the organizations that are already removing thousands of used syringes from our streets. We respectfully ask you to reject this moratorium and instead pursue evidence-based solutions that reduce syringe waste, protect public health, and make Augusta safer for everyone. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
So if a moratorium goes into place and it just freezes things the way they are now, doesn't affect your operation,
Correct.
how is that going to make things worse? I think that's what you said. By imposing a moratorium, things will get worse.
For me and for other prevention organizations, harm reduction organizations, you're right. It would not affect our practices or Maine General's practices at all. I think from my perspective, what it does is it creates a correlation that isn't a causation. And to continue that narrative, continue that misinformation is very harmful for the harm reduction community. To say that we are creating a moratorium so that we can reduce syringe waste is not accurate. As we just said, we took in more syringes than were given out. This is not a new problem that began a year ago with the Access Center. There were syringes in public before we opened. So to correlate that to syringe service providers, I feel is very dangerous.
Okay, the purpose of all right, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right. Still in public comment? Yes.
Good evening, Mayor O'Brien, members of the Augusta City Council. I was here last week, was really just listening.
Please introduce yourself and where you're from.
I'm Tess Parks. I am the Policy Director for Maine Recovery Action Project. I do just want to acknowledge before I read my written remarks, this is a very emotional issue. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I just celebrated 12 years last month, but I've lost family members to our opioid crisis. I'm in my 30s. Many of my friends did not survive their 20s, and I wish that they were still here today. And a lot of the conversations tonight around gaps in services, I wish there were more inpatient treatment beds. We wish that there were more detoxes, especially in rural areas. And in my role as policy director, I am at the State House 6 months of the year arguing for the full continuum of care, whether that's prevention, harm reduction, treatment, or recovery. But I want to stay on topic tonight and talk about this specific moratorium and what the evidence has shown around syringe service programs. I want to echo what our board chair shared. We share many of the same goals and values. I don't think anyone wants to see syringes in their communities. Many communities across Maine, including Augusta, are seeing a convergence of many different issues. We've had an opioid crisis. We've seen more individuals entering chronic homelessness year after year. We've had an affordability crisis. We don't have the low barrier shelters needed. And the truth of the matter is, syringe service programs did not cause all of those issues, and we can't be the only tool. But what we can do is provide some efforts to try to help people get into care. Wound care, naloxone distribution. I'm sure many of you have heard the broad array of activities that syringe service programs do beyond just handing out syringes or exchanging used syringes. These programs have been consistently studied for over 30 years. They are not new. The evidence has been remarkably consistent. People who use syringe service programs are 5 times more likely to enter treatment. and 3 times more likely to stop injecting drugs. Research has also shown these programs are associated with an estimated 50% reduction in HIV and hepatitis C co-infections among people who inject drugs. I want to talk a little bit about the cost savings with that statistic. The estimated lifetime cost of treating one person living with HIV is approximately $420,000. So an individual that uses main care to pay for that treatment, that is a cost that goes directly onto taxpayers. When we have more HIV and Hep C, our hospitals are overrun. I think we all know our hospitals are already strained. We have a hard time recruiting healthcare workers in our state. And I would hope that we would all have that shared goal where we want to reduce diseases, including endocarditis. You know, if you're in the hospital for a month recovering from open heart surgery, that costs a lot of money. You know, we've heard that the primary concern is syringe waste in public spaces, and as Reagan LaRochelle stated, there is a feeling that this moratorium is suggesting that syringe service programs are the primary cause of syringe waste. I think if we really do have a shared goal of if we want to reduce syringe waste, then we should invest in some solutions that are shown to be effective, that are practical, and can address resident concerns. The city could purchase and install public sharps boxes. This was recommended by the Substance Use Task Force of Augusta in 2021. The city could issue a request for proposals for a syringe redemption program that's been very successful in Portland for reducing syringe waste. The city could help expand existing community cleanups by partnering with organizations, civic and volunteer groups. You know, I think we all want the same outcome. We want fewer discarded syringes. We want healthier residents. We want a safer Augusta. We remain steadfast in our commitment to being a partner in this work. We would welcome the opportunity to support any effort to expand safe disposal efforts, and we certainly would be willing to assist the city and develop thoughtful policies or an ordinance that would address community concerns and are informed by the best available evidence that we had. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Riley Richards. As I hear everybody, as like I said, I am a great player of devil's advocate. I see the side of both sides, and however, as I sat here listening to the statistics that were just being laid out, I would like to just let you know that, as we all know, substance use is considered a disorder that has happened over the past few years. It's, you know, a chronic illness. You need help. It's the only way to get better. It also, this is from use alone, substance use alone can cause cardiovascular disease, as we're talking about endocrinosis, however she said it. You know, that's a state dime. So now we're paying for somebody who's not only a user, who could have used from the products that we've already supplied. Now we're paying for their chronic heart disease or chronic Hep B and Hep C, as we all know of. And then the most two damning ones, which are more common, are the chronic liver and lung disease. Now, with this, I also would like to add that Maine has, and I'm going to quote this from the internet so anybody can find it, Maine has a historically low overall HIV diagnosis rate compared to the national average. Now, this is because we have the ability to have compassion. That is one thing that I want to remind you all. We are all Mainers. We are here. We want to make this a better place, correct? I can tell you right now, compassion is not going to come with all of these needles. As the gentleman stated before me, that is 100 choices that an individual could make. That is 100 times that somebody could overdose. I am not a user. I got that material myself. What's going to happen if I were to turn around and decide today is going to be the day? Now I was just given the material to turn around and use. And now I'm not only a problem of all of these health issues that could come with being a user, but now I'm also an opiate addict. And again, that is not where I stand. So that is what I want you to kind of reach in your back pocket for. A little bit of compassion, a little bit of empathy. Take a moment. Mr. Mayor, you asked how you could make a change. Do that walk around town. You know, take a second, go talk to those people, see why they're there. I can tell you, because I've done it, most of them are not there for drug use. Most of them are for, they might have gotten kicked out with their kids. They could be running from a domestic abuse situation. But all that it nulls down to is this issue, because this issue brings problems to the table for everybody. Does not matter if you have a multi-million-dollar home or if you are quite literally living in a tent in my backyard. This issue is going to affect you, and you, and you, and you. Absolutely you, of course you, and you, and these two. In my last couple of seconds, or a minute or so, I want to say thank you to these three sitting right here. Because not only have I felt the compassion from the moment that they looked at me and heard my story every time I came up to this podium, but I can honestly see the thought process on their faces. A couple of you here too. So that is what I want you to do. When you go home later, I'm going to go home. We all have our vice, right? Glass of wine, glass of whiskey on ice, heck, cup of coffee with a dessert, who knows? When you go home and you have that vice, I want you to think to yourself, how is that vice affecting the people around you? So I can tell you right now, if you have alcoholism, it's affecting somebody. If you have that cup of coffee before you go to bed and you wake up tomorrow and go to your cardiologist and get diagnosed with heart disease, that was your option. That is one of your 100 choices that you could have made to make a different choice. So that is what I'm asking. I'm asking for a different choice. I'm asking for a public vote. I'm asking for more people to put eyes on this situation because this is not helping. I am not saying that the needle exchange program is a failure. I am not saying that the statistics do not back up some of the things that we have heard. What I am saying is that it is not working for our town, our city, or our state specifically. We are not Portland. We are not Bangor. We are Augusta. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Would you do me a favor before you get started? Would you turn that sign around
This way?
facing you?
Facing me. Good instructions. I appreciate it. Please let me know if you can't hear me, of course. Good evening, Mayor O'Brien, honorable members of the council. I am Representative Umbreen Rana, and I have the honor of representing House District 21, which is Bangor. You might be wondering why I'm coming here from Bangor, and I'm sure my testimony will make that very clear. But I also want to mention that I work here in the city of Augusta. I spend a lot of time here, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my thoughts today. I'm here tonight as the sponsor of multiple bills related to syringe service programs that were enacted into law just this past session. I'm also someone who formerly worked in a syringe service program. I have a deep understanding of the importance of these programs, especially in rural areas, not Portland, northern Maine and down East Maine, where I live. I'm here tonight to share some of the harms that my community has experienced as a result of past disruptions, limitations, and the halting of syringe service programs right in Bangor. As of July 24th of this year, the Maine CDC has confirmed 45 HIV cases in Penobscot County. 41 of those individuals injected drugs within a year of diagnosis, and 41 were unhoused within a year of diagnosis. 89% of those people are co-infected with hepatitis C virus, or HCV. This is the largest HIV outbreak that the state has ever seen, and currently the largest outbreak amongst drug users in the country. There's a national response to this outbreak that's happening in my community. To put this into perspective, the county averaged only 2 new HIV cases per year prior to this outbreak. These are not abstract numbers. They represent real people and the consequences of the gaps in our public health infrastructure. Additionally, the average lifetime cost of treating HIV is $420,000, which equals just shy of $19 million just for those 45 new cases in Bangor. I can attest to these numbers personally. Earlier in my career, from 2015 to 2018, I partnered directly with the CDC to provide HIV and Hep C testing in my community. And working both across Penobscot County and Hancock County, in my 3 years of that work, I only encountered one positive HIV test. So this number has been shocking over the last year, over the last couple of years. In November 2024, Health Equity Alliance, also known as HEAL, a long-standing syringe service program in Bangor, closed. By January 2025, the Maine CDC had confirmed 16 of these HIV cases in Penobscot County. And by March, an HIV outbreak had been declared, with 23 confirmed cases. Syringe distribution in Bangor dropped by more than half from November 2024 to October 2025, according to the CDC. Following the closure of HEAL, Wabanaki Public Health and Wellness and Needlepoint Sanctuary have worked to fill the gap in Bangor, but have not been able to reach the previous level of distribution of sterile syringes to the community. Not only did we lose a syringe service program, we lost all of those long-standing relationships that took years to cultivate with people who use drugs and with unhoused people in our community. It takes time to build these relationships with people. It is extremely vulnerable to be in the position to access those services. And these relationships were also lost when the large central homeless encampment was shut down in Bangor, making it even harder to reach individuals and provide them with the care that they need. This outbreak has continued to grow to this day. Bangor's experience reminds us how important consistent access to syringe service, testing, treatment, and trusted community-based care can be in protecting the health of the entire community. The facts are so clear. Disrupting those services are what contributed to the HIV outbreak that we're contending with in my community. At the same time, communities across Maine continue to face growing challenges of discarded syringes in public spaces. We all want these spaces to be safe, clean, and welcoming, and local leaders share a responsibility to address this issue. And of course, that's why you're handling this ordinance today. But we must address it in a practical and effective way that is guided by evidence-based practices. I encourage you to join me in advocating to the Maine Legislature, the Attorney General, the Maine Recovery Council, and other funding partners to provide the resources needed to implement a bill that I passed earlier this year, Biohazard Waste Disposal Grant Program, that was established through LD 1738. This evidence-based program offers a proactive solution to this shared challenge that we're dealing with across the state. Through this program, the CDC would provide grants to support local initiatives aimed at reducing syringe litter and improving disposal infrastructure. Eligible applicants would include municipal governments like the City of Augusta. LD 1738 would prioritize funding projects that address areas with documented increases in improperly discarded syringes, demonstrate collaborative approaches engaging local stakeholders, and use innovative and evidence-based strategies to improve the disposal of syringes in a safe way. This would also include funding to support activities such as installing secure syringe disposal boxes, both indoors and outdoors, ensuring proper disposal of collected syringes at compliant in-state facilities, hiring and training staff to conduct collection and disposal work, and implementing other strategies designed to prevent syringe waste based on local needs. And I just have a little bit more to share.
You're well over the 5 minutes.
Okay.
But please wrap it up.
Thank you. And I'll be sure to share my testimony with you
That'd be
over
great.
email so that you can read it in full. So I would love to work with you to draft a letter in support of getting this funding so that I can help support the City of Augusta in their syringe cleanup efforts. I want to remind us all that pausing these life-saving services and disrupting them is not the solution. We need now more than ever the investment in these very services that keep our community safe. Syringe services are the first contact where someone is treated with dignity and kindness. Through that connection, syringe service programs are pathways to healthcare access, case management services, recovery, detox, and housing.
Representative,
Yes.
thank
I
you.
ask you to oppose this moratorium, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. I have a question for you.
Sure.
Did you say you're a state representative?
I am.
Would you agree that municipalities have a role to play in establishing standards for permitting, locating, and the operation of needle exchanges?
I believe that municipalities should follow the guidance we're so lucky to have a really strong state public health agency, and I believe that municipalities should follow the guidance laid out by the CDC, evidence-based guidance.
So trying to interpret what you're saying. So does that mean you don't think that they have a role to play independent of some specific CDC guidance?
I really strongly urge the municipalities to follow the CDC guidance because it's evidence-based practice and it's proven to work. And
So stop.
thank you. In response to a municipality's role, I want to also mention that the reason that I brought this bill forward because I recognize that municipalities are strained when it comes to their budgets, and I think that it's the state's role to support you in these struggles.
I know it passed, it just wasn't well-funded, right?
We just got to get it funded.
All right. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you
Thank
for
you for
joining
your
us. Others would like to offer public comment.
William Clardy of Augusta again. I just would like to point out, sitting back there listening to all this discussion, if our current existing needle exchange provider is actually doing a good job of reducing the overall number of needles, kudos to them. But a moratorium does not stop them from working. It gives the city time to actually weigh what its policies should be and set standards so that any subsequent providers that they permit in the city, by whatever standards you guys come up with, will maintain that performance standard and actually reduce the number of needles versus what is publicly reported in other unnamed cities throughout the state where the number of needles is going up radically. I think that is a municipality's right and responsibility to actually make sure that programs within your city work the way they're intended to and to hold them accountable. So a 6-month time period to stop, take a deep breath, verify all these cited statistics, see which ones actually have real facts behind them and which ones don't, would be, to my mind, a very sensible thing. It's not a slap in the face to say, hey, you guys are doing a decent job. We want to make sure that anybody else that comes along does at least as well as you. Give us your magic formula for, what works to make it happen. And that's just taking them at face value. One other item that, just as a matter of personal annoyance, the citation that it costs almost $500,000 to take care of somebody for their lifetime after they get HIV. I will point out very coldly, very unfeelingly, that infection is a result of lifestyle choices. Only about half of you are old enough to actually remember the start of the HIV/AIDS epidemic and all the mistakes and all the false claims and all the false statistics that came broiling out of that, some of which drove public policy in the wrong direction. So, yeah, let's learn from HIV and AIDS. Let's take the time to actually find out what the facts are, verify the facts, and, make sensible decisions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sagagny again. Why are we opposed to abstinence? Abstinence. Do we know what abstinence means? None, zero, zero. What's the problem with getting funding for inpatient treatment? Let's start with detox and inpatient treatment, and then transitional treatment after that. Why are we getting grants to enable people to do drugs? I'm not understanding. And where are the alcoholics in all of this?
Lisa,
They
Lisa,
have to abstain. No, the
Lisa,
money, what I'm,
Lisa,
why are you interrupting me?
I'll tell you why I'm interrupting you. I've given you a lot of latitude tonight, but I'd like to talk about the moratorium and not just unrelated topics to the moratorium.
They're asking for grants and funding. Why are we not asking for grants and funding for treatment facilities instead of?
This has nothing to do with grants. This has to do with a moratorium on the,
Okay. It was a public comment from what she was saying.
I invite you to have that conversation one-on-one with her. All right?
Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
don't have to be rude.
I didn't think I was being rude.
It's been my last time tonight, I promise. But I just got a few points after listening to everybody tonight. You know, the AIDS thing. So, you know, that's one argument on why you want to hand the needles out. But it's funny because the reason why they're handing the crack pipes out is because they claim you can get AIDS from saliva. That's their excuse of handing out the crack pipes. So, again, like, how does that make any sense? And to this gentleman, where he was like, it seems to be a left or a right issue. This isn't a left or a right issue, but it seems to be every left-wing shithole that seems to be run like this. So, I mean, and then we talk about the opiate money, right? And how that money was established, right, through a lawsuit because they were selling medicine that made people addicted. And now you're using that exact money to keep people addicted.
This came from the same place, same access.
Is there any further public comment on the moratorium, proposed moratorium?
Hello, my name is Sarah Halsey. I live here in Augusta. I'm not going to speak about my very expensive education in mental health and human services, my role within the recovery community, the amazing people that I know sitting in this room. I've heard lots of things tonight about funding, the community, different centers. What about the children? I'm spending rent money in childcare so my daughter doesn't have to walk home a block from school because it's not safe. In 2 weeks, I will be sober for 10 years. 10 years of abstinence.
Congratulations.
I know what that is. I had to explain to my daughter yesterday why somebody's bone was exposed on their leg at the gas station. This is what I deal with every day, but I shouldn't have to worry about my children going to the park. No, you can't go there. It's not safe. I shouldn't have to pay $800 a month in childcare because my daughter can't walk home a block from my home. That's supposed to be safe. So there are a lot of things in Augusta right now that are working, and like, kudos. I know so many people in this community. I've worked in this community a long time, but there are a lot of things that aren't working. So we've got the numbers that this program, the Access Center, is successfully bringing in needles. Why don't we take a pause to reconsider what's going on before we add anything else, expand on anything else? Why don't we think about the children that I'm now treating at 18, 19 years old who are using these needles. My same children that are years away from that I'm trying to protect, that are seeing this every day. We need to reconsider what we're doing in Augusta because there's a lot of great things, but there's a lot of things that just aren't working. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is it okay if Portland, Maine residents speak here as well? I didn't know if it was just for Augusta.
No, go ahead.
That's
Identify
right.
yourself, and now we know you're from Portland. right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
My name is Joshua Leonard. I'm a resident of Portland, Maine. One thing that I've come to hear, and I've kind of traveled around Maine a little bit, I work in recovery. I'm getting close to 10 years in recovery myself as well. And the landscape of what we're seeing out there is changing, and it's changing pretty dramatically. What you're seeing in Augusta is not too dissimilar from what we're seeing here in Portland. One thing that I do know, and I've come to learn this over years of working with people in recovery, is an important component to not forget is social and environmental conditions do play some of the most critical, impactful roles in creating safe environments for people to recover in. It's evidence-based, scientific, study after study shows that these conditions do affect outcomes. Positive environmental and social conditions lead to positive outcomes, and negative have a tendency to lead to negative outcomes. A lot of good, well-meaning people work in harm reduction, but there has to be a point where we can have honest debate about what's going on with some of the negative outcomes with harm reduction. We're right down the epicenter in Portland, and this happened when I was living there as a resident, and now that I'm an operator, is I got a group of guys fighting tooth and nail to get sober, change their life around, head in a new direction. They open up the door to walk outside and go to work, and they're having to step over people shooting up on our doorstep. And for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people, in a weird way, they're stuck in addiction even when they're sober, because these things are staring them in the face every single time that they walk outside. The practices with harm reduction and needle exchanges are evidence-based when it comes to their practice. Single needle, single use, one time, discard. Hospitals use these standards. They are gold standards when it comes to practices. The issue is the principle of this practice actually happening in real time. One thing that I can tell you is I work in property management outside of recovery. I do not make a lot of money in sober housing. It's about probably 12 grand a year, so that is definitely well below poverty wage. So I work a full-time job in property management. Huge property in Portland. We have people siphoning into this property, all nooks and crannies, the place to shoot up and be discreet. The one needle, one time, one use, it's just not happening. I see people loading up a rig, they'll take half, hand it over, somebody takes the other half, same needle. Is this happening every single time needles are used? No, they're not. The other thing I want to address, and I'll close on this, I've heard a lot from SSPs of citing some statistical fact that SSPs do not contribute to needle waste in any significant way. That's a lie. That is undeniably a lie. All of the needles that I'm picking up on the site every single day are coming from the SSP right down the road. I know I'm picking up the kits, boxes of 100 needles. So listen, harm reductionists up here have done some really fantastic work in connectivity to the community. There are some issues that do have to be addressed, and they're super impactful issues. So I'm not here for or against, but I appreciate the conversation. It is a super important topic. I know it's very kind of controversial in the current climate to bring up a moratorium like this. Don't be bullied in any type of way. Just listen to the residents. I'd be happy to reach out to people for more information. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody else would like to join the public comment section on the proposed moratorium? All right, I'm not seeing anyone. So again, the council will come back to all these proposed orders. I think we're moving next to 26123. Is that right, Madam Clerk? Okay. New business, ordinances being read for the first time, no vote required tonight. 26123 is a long order relating to land use ordinance changes, but I'll let you get started.
26-123, Mayor and Council. Whereas the Planning Board finds that updates to the land use ordinance are required by newly enacted state laws regarding subdivisions, and whereas the Planning Board finds that these changes are expected to enhance developers and homeowners' ability to create new housing, addressing a City Council goal for 2026.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Lind.
move to waive further reading of item 26-123 with consent.
I ask if there's any objection, councilors. I don't see any. So the motion's adopted by unanimous consent. There's a lot of words here, but the changes are few. It really has to do with complying with newly enacted state law regarding subdivisions and bringing our land use ordinance into compliance. Is there any public comment? All right. Next is 26124. Thank you, please.
26-124, Mayor and Council. Whereas the Planning Board finds that updates to the land use ordinance are required by newly enacted state laws regarding accessory dwelling units, and whereas the Planning Board finds that these changes are expected to enhance developers and homeowners' ability to create new housing, addressing a City Council goal for 2026.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Lynn.
move to waive further reading of item 26-124 with consent.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is adopted by unanimous consent. These are additional set of proposed land use changes coming to us from the Planning Board, these dealing with accessory dwelling units. Is there any public comment? Madam Clerk, next is 26125.
26-125, Mayor and Council. Whereas the Planning Board finds that the comprehensive plan is clear that an economically vibrant downtown is critical to Augusta's future, and whereas the Planning Board recognizes that active storefronts on Water Street are an important element of that economic vibrance that does not exist when the storefronts are converted to residential use, and whereas the presence of residential uses is equally important throughout the downtown and all other parts of buildings that do not front on Water Street. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Augusta that the Land Use Ordinance, Section 300-314.2, subsection C, subsection 1, subsection B, shall be hereby amended to add the following language. Section 5, residential land uses are not permitted within 30 feet of the face of the building at street level, fronting Water Street, south of the Commercial Street intersection. Be it further ordained that the moratorium ordinance on residential development within Kennebec Business District 1 enacted on April 2, 2026 be hereby repealed.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Richards. I'm just not sure where it falls within all these different policies, so I'm just going to kind of speak openly. Where does the encampment that's on city property fall, that's behind my home, that has been allowed to be there? It's 10 to 12 tents. It's not in front of any storefront or anything like that, but I can tell you that, like, I don't want them there. My neighbors don't want them there. With it comes the drug use and everything else. It's not just, you know, Joe Schmo trying to get back on their feet. So where do we fall within this? Where does our homeless community fall within this? You know,
Your Honor.
This is, Mr. Manager?
Yeah, I already have a note to have the police chief follow up with you with, I've taken copious notes of all the
thank you.
issues you've
I've been
talked
trying
about.
for weeks.
Yeah,
so
I will make sure that,
Thank
that
you.
you have somebody following up. If this is city property, we.
It is.
we
It
have
is. I've spoken with CMP myself. They came out. They did.
Not
yeah,
theirs.
they made sure it's not on their property. So that's another thing that we need to keep in mind is we're pushing them off of these storefronts. Which I'm sorry, I want the eyesore. I want everybody that sits in your chairs here, for other states, for the government, to see what is happening to our, honestly, what used to be wonderful country. I had no idea they were there. I was living there for months, and it took Nick, who's not in here at the moment, to go up and see what was going on for me, because the police didn't want anything to do with it. So I think that's something that we need to keep in mind is as we are pushing these people away from these storefronts, yes, it hinders businesses and makes it look ugly, but healing is ugly. It's not linear, it's not lineal, it's not a straight line. So I guess that's my question, is if we're going to push them off of these lines, away from these storefronts, is where are they going to go next? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there additional public comment?
William Clardy, still of Augusta. On this ordinance, just reading it, could it be amended or should it be amended to make it clear that it's addressing residential use at street level and not subject to misinterpretation that, you know, apartments on the second, third, fourth floor along Water Street or along that section would be outlawed?
It does say at street level.
It does say at street level, but the way it's worded it, you know, somebody could interpret that as starting from 30 feet at the front face of the building where it's at street level, just making an explicit exception for upper floors is what I was thinking. Just a suggestion.
Well,
and I know I'm playing devil's advocate in terms of the wording, but just a thought.
We'll have Corporation Counsel take that under advisement before the second reading.
I might have the answer, and I think Matt Nazar can correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason it's specified at street level is because if you were to say first floor within this area of the city, it would be a question as to whether you're talking about the first floor at Commercial Street or the first floor at what's the other one? Water Street. Yeah. So they're multi-level buildings and it's on a hill, so it becomes a question which floor you're actually talking about, which is why it's specified at street level fronting Water Street south of Commercial Street.
Is there any further public comment? Okay. So we've got two more orders on the agenda following communications. One is to go to executive session. We'll deal with that in a moment. We've got one other item of new business to be read and considered tonight, 26127.
26-127, City Manager.
What? Yes, you can do it. Yeah, it's fine. Just read it.
Just be it ordered. Be it ordered that the City Council hereby approves the conveyance of so much of the city-owned property lying between the property identified on the city's tax map 10 as Lot 18D and the Pierce Drive right-of-way as may be necessary to provide said property with legal frontage on the Pierce Drive right-of-way in accordance with the paragraph referencing the City of Augusta and warranty deed from Brittany L. Belmore and Andrew P. Belmore to Andrew P. Belmore, recorded at the Kennebec County Registry of Deeds, Book 15293, pages 308 through 310, and further authorizes the city manager to execute a deed and such other documentation in form satisfactory to Corporation Council as may be necessary to effect such conveyance.
Very well done. Is there any public comment? All right. With that, we're going to return to the beginning of the agenda and first consider the consent agenda.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Moved for passage by Councilor Lind,
Second, Mr. Mayor.
seconded by Councilor Judkins. Is there any discussion? Councilor Sinkowitz, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to first acknowledge that my husband is Aaron Sinkowitz, who is one of the members being reappointed to the Conservation Commission. He does not receive any financial compensation, so I will be voting on the consent agenda tonight. And I also just wanted to extend my thanks to Aaron and Keith and Nathan for joining again the boards that they are on, and then to Maddie, who I think had to leave, for choosing to join the planning board and to add her, it seems, extensive experience to that board. I think we will be very well served by that. So thank you all for your commitment to the city and to doing what you can to continue to improve our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lind.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So much like that, Keith Lind, under Order 26110, is my son. There is no financial gain. I'm proud to say he moved out of my house 20 years ago. He's doing fine. I do want to thank him for his continued volunteering. And I want to thank Aaron Sinkowitz, like a good dad. I think he left with his two young girls to put him to bed. But Aaron has revitalized that Conservation Committee, and he has done a great job of reaching out to the Warner-Matogus Lake Association. They were, for years, kind of felt maybe left out at times, and he's done a terrific job learning a very complex subject. I want to thank him. I don't know if Madeline Bruno was here, if she hung in with us, but I want to thank her for her willingness to be on the planning board. She works for a great organization, Maine DEP, and I also know she's president of the Vials Arboretum, which is absolutely terrific to have someone with those qualities. And Nathan Levesque, when Nathan was on, joined the planning board, I had a nice discussion with Nathan. I appreciate him. A man of few words, very thoughtful in what he says, and he's articulate, so I appreciate him being willing to hang in with the planning board. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? My thanks as well. Councilor Gary Allen? No? Okay. So with tonight's participation by Zoom with Councilor Gary Allen, that requires that all votes taken by the council tonight be done in a roll call fashion instead of the levers and lights. So as we go through all of these items, including the consent agenda, we'll be asking councilors to register their votes vocally. With that, a call for, that's been moved and seconded, right? Okay, so if there's no further discussion, call for vote on the consent agenda 26108 through 26112.
Councillor Austin.
Yes.
Councillor Judkins.
Yes.
Councillor Mishu.
Yes.
Councillor Lind.
Yay.
Councillor Gary Allen.
Yes.
Councillor Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Councillor Morris Polly.
Yay.
Councillor Lilly.
Yay.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Next is new business orders and resolves in 26113, which is the order pertaining to the request for proposals with respect to a low barrier shelter in the city.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
By Councilor Lind,
Second, Mr. Mayor.
seconded by Councilor Judkins. Discussion. Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to extend my thanks to our Director of Community Services, Earl Kingsbury, for the extensive work that he did putting this RFP together. We have quite the list that we wanted to make sure to cover, and he did an excellent job making sure we covered all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? For those of you who've been following along, this is another step that the city is trying to take to address the issue of the unhoused in Augusta. and one of the recommendations coming out of the task force that was set up to make recommendations to the council. So if there's no further discussion, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Austin.
Yes.
Counselor Judkins.
Yay.
Counselor Mishu.
Yes.
Counselor Lind.
Yay.
Counselor Gary Allen.
Yes.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Counselor Morris Bally.
Yay.
Counselor Lilly.
Yay.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, next is the first of the 8 orders pertaining to the recommendations for the use of opioid settlement funds that the task board made, 26114.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councilor Lind,
Second, Mr. Mayor?
seconded by Councilor Judkins. For those of you who may lost track, this is the one pertaining to $50,000 to the United Community Living Center to fund the proposed community center expansion project. Discussion. Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start this list by deeply thanking my task force members for the hours, multiple days at this point, that you have put into this, creating a grant application, creating a scoring rubric, reading the 8 grants applications we did receive, working through scoring them, and getting us to this point. This process was thorough, it was rigorous, we had very intense discussions, and I think we've come to a good place. This particular project had unanimous support from the task force. This project, expanding the good work being done at UCLC, is something that the task force is fully behind, and I will be very enthused to vote in favor of it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Counselor Austin.
Yes.
Counselor Judkins.
With pleasure. Yay.
Counselor Mishu.
Yes.
Counselor Lind.
Yay.
Counselor Gary Allen.
Yes.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Counselor Morris Bally.
Yay.
Counselor Lilly.
Yay.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Next, 26115.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councilor Sinkowitz.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councilor Lind. This one is the one pertaining to the $25,000 to the United Community Living Center to fund its proposed street outreach and engagement project. It's been moved and seconded. I will open for discussion, if any. Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. The same thing applies. Unanimous, very excited to be voting for this. The task force had full support for this project, continuing and expanding the outreach that UCLC is doing. Thank you.
Anyone else? Calling for a vote.
Counselor Austin.
Yes.
Counselor Judkins.
Yay.
Counselor Mishu.
Yes.
Counselor Lind.
Yay.
Counselor Gary Allen.
Yes.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Counselor Morris Polly.
Yay.
Counselor Lilly.
Yay.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Next, moving to 26116, the order pertaining to $50,000 to the Augusta Teen Center Boys and Girls Club to fund its proposed Teen Center Community Coordinator position.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
That's been moved for passage by Councilor Lind,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Sinkowitz.
It was Morris Polly this time. We leaned at the same time.
Seconded all around.
My voice.
Invite council discussion. Councilor Morris Polly.
Yes, I want to just commend this application. I think that it is well needed here in Augusta, especially working with our teens and our children. And I don't think we have a whole lot of applications that come in this area. And so I want to thank the Teen Center for the work that they did. And I think it's a great application. And I'm happy to vote for it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, again, unanimous, full support of the task force, and this was the only application that we received for prevention work, and the task force was very in favor of moving it forward. So thank you to the Teen Center for bringing that very needed service to us.
Further. Please vote.
Counselor Austin.
Yes.
Counselor Judkins.
Yay.
Counselor Mishu.
Yes.
Counselor Lind.
Yay.
Counselor Gary Allen.
Yes.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Counselor Morris Polly.
Yay.
Counselor Lilly.
Yay.
Motion carries, 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Next is 26-117. This one relates to $50,000 to the HFGC Recovery Network to fund its proposed Anthony Avenue Recovery Stabilization Project.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Move for passage by Councilor Lind,
Second, Mr. Mayor.
seconded by Councilor Sinkowitz. Discussion. Councilor Morris Polly.
Yes, I would like to just ensure that the grant agreement has a flag note on it, that the funds are released when the licensing is completed for the detox center, seeing as how this is for staffing for the center. And so I want to make sure that that gets into the agreement.
Certainly, it'll be noted.
Thank you.
Further? Please, Madam Clerk, call for vote.
Counselor Austin.
Yes.
Counselor Judkins.
Yay.
Counselor Mishu.
Yes.
Counselor Lind.
Yay.
Counselor Gary Allen.
Yes.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Counselor Morris Polly.
Yay.
Counselor Lilly.
Yay.
Motion carries, 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Moving along to 26-118. This one relates to the $50,000 to Zisk Recovery Partners to fund its proposed purchase of a van.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councilor Lind,
Second, Mr. Mayor.
seconded by Councilor Sinkowitz. Discussion. Councilor Lind and then Councilor Mishu.
Mr. Mayor, a lot of discussion last week about this particular grant application. It came to us from the committee with a split vote, and after careful consideration, I will be voting against this particular grant application. I just don't think it's thought through in terms of the entire process as we move forward. We were worried about setting a precedent with purchasing this one van. I think we need to, I'm not saying I'm opposed to vans for these organizations, but maybe just to pause and think about how we're going to do it and apply that across the board. I think we may be a slippery slope doing one and not thinking about further down the road. So nothing against this particular application, just from a policy perspective.
Thank you. Councilor Mishu, yes.
I echo what Councilor Lynn said. It was a 3-2 vote, and if you were taking a quiz in school, that's 60%. So I, again, I rely on the task force, and a strong majority tells me it's something that they all believe in, and this particular one doesn't. So I will, again, I will be voting nay on this one.
Councilor Judkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whilst I think the idea of perhaps having a van for their operations, help transport people around and such, is probably a really good idea, I don't think for the stream of funding that we're working with here and the kind of the guidelines that we're given in regards to handing out our portion of opioid money, that this really relates to that. So because of that reasoning, I will be a nay vote on this evening.
Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate my fellow councilors' deliberations on this, and I deeply appreciate how much they dug into this process. I was one of the votes that voted to move this project forward, and I will still be voting in support of it tonight. I do believe it aligns very closely with Exhibit E and the council's policy that we wrote in 2024. The concerns, I think, are valid and something for us to continue to work forward, but I believe that the grant application that we created from that policy did elicit this this proposal. So I will be voting in support of it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to weigh in before we vote? All right. Let's now vote.
Counselor Austin.
Yes.
Counselor Judkins.
Nay.
Counselor Mishu.
Nay.
Counselor Lind.
Nay.
Counselor Gary Allen.
Yes.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Counselor Morris Polly.
Nay.
Counselor Lilly.
Nay.
Motion fails. 3 in favor, 5 opposed.
All right, 26119 is next. This one relates to $14,750 to ZISC Recovery Partners to fund its proposed recovery support program.
Move for passage,
Moved
Mr.
by
Mayor.
Councilor Sinkowitz
Second, Mr. Mayor.
and seconded by Councilor Lind. I'll open it up for discussion. Councilor Lind?
I'll be voting nay on this particular item for a couple of reasons. First, the camping equipment list, as I stated at the informational meeting, I don't think it was well thought through. It didn't make a lot of sense to someone that camps a lot. And the welcome bag is a little problematic. I just don't know enough about it. But to lump them two together in one application, I'm just not sure was done well. But the list of camping equipment just did not make any sense to me at all when I looked at it. It just, you couldn't go camping with what was on that list. So I'll be voting against this simply because I don't think it was an inadequate list.
Anyone else? Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I was a vote to move this forward. This was one that I was more split on myself, and my vote in the affirmative was to make sure that council got the chance to deliberate with it. At that point in time, we weren't sure what was going to happen if proposals didn't move out of committee. So I appreciate Councilor Lynn's deep expertise in this area, and I will be voting against this proposal tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Counselor Austin.
No.
Counselor Judkins.
Nay.
Counselor Mishu.
Nay.
Counselor Lind.
Nay.
Counselor Gary Allen.
No.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
No.
Counselor Morris Polly.
Nay.
Counselor Lilly.
Nay.
Motion fails. 0 in favor, 8 opposed.
Next is 26120. This one speaks to $8,686.65 to ZISC Recovery Partners to fund its proposal for a curriculum expansion of the Augusta Intensive Outpatient Program. Is there a motion to move it forward? Calling for a motion. Motion fails for lack of a fails for lack of a motion, much less lack of a second. 26121 is the $50,000 to the Access Direct Recovery Network to fund its proposed expansion of the Growth Helps Healing Project. Does anybody want to make a motion there? Again, fails for lack of a motion and second. So that takes us through the 8 grant requests and action by the City Council on all of those. A great deal of thanks is owed to the task force for taking this process from scratch in terms of coming up, following our policy decision and coming up with a scoring rubric and spending the time soliciting, discussing, and then making recommendations. So it was a lot of work. We delegated a lot of responsibility to them, and they came through for us, and we appreciate it. So let's move next to 26122.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
That's been moved for passage by Councilor Lind.
Second.
And seconded by Councilor Judkins. This is the order that authorizes the city manager to execute a term sheet with Hatchio Power LLC regarding the operation of a landfill gas-to-energy generator. Discussion. Councilor Lind.
I just want to thank Corporation Counsel for all the work on the law firm that helped us with this. I often joke about attorneys, but there are times when you need a really good attorney. We had a really good attorney that worked a very good deal for us. So much appreciated, Cam, to you and your colleagues. Thank you.
Others? We've talked about this for a long time, maybe not always out in the open because it was a subject of negotiations, but this is, in my estimation, a good solution to a bad problem. and a problem that's been vexing for us for a long time out there. So fingers crossed that this works out through the due diligence period and becomes a good solution for us out there. With that, if there's no further discussion, call for a vote.
Counselor Austin.
Yes.
Counselor Judkins.
Yay.
Counselor Mishu.
Yes.
Counselor Lind.
Yay.
Counselor Gary Allen.
Yes.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Counselor Morris Folly.
Yay.
Counselor Lilly.
Yay.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Very good. Next is old business ordinances being read for the second time, so a vote is required tonight. 26105 is the order that proposes the establishment of a 180-day moratorium with respect to what we define as needle exchanges and their expansion and permitting and licensing and establishment or operation. So it's your motion.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Morris Polly, seconded by Councilor Mishu. Discussion. Councilor Lind and then Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, thought a lot about this over the last couple of weeks from the time we've been discussing it. I want to thank people that I've talked to that have been open to conversation. And so these are my thoughts. It's been very electric here tonight. Unfortunately, I think sometimes civility is slipping slowly away. I've seen that over 9 years, and I don't think it serves any good purpose, in my opinion. But this moratorium, I think, allows some thoughtful planning. Make no mistake, we have competing interests, perspectives, and concerns from residents, businesses, healthcare providers, people living with substance abuse disorder, and the service organizations working to address this extremely complex and often misunderstood issue. As local government, I feel it's our responsibility. Our responsibility extends beyond public health. We have to consider public safety, neighborhood quality of life, economic development, and environmental stewardship. This temporary moratorium will allow us to thoughtfully weigh all of these interests before additional unknown providers establish new facilities in Augusta. At this time, we have 2 well-known and established organizations providing needle exchange and harm reduction services. I feel this is an appropriate time to pause, review our policies, and avoid unintended consequences should a 3rd, 4th, or 5th facility seek to open in our city. My vote, I want to be very clear, my vote is not a rejection of harm reduction. It's a commitment to good governance by ensuring we have clear policies in place before additional facilities are established. It's unfortunate that the state representative from Bangor left. I did want to address her comments. I'm a strong believer in Maine's home rule. Maine is a very strong home rule state, and as a municipality, we have a right to govern, and I think this is exercising that right and enforcing Maine's home rule. So I'll be voting in favor of this temporary moratorium as a pause. Again, it is not a rejection of harm reduction. I want to make that very clear. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to recognize Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start by just saying I concur with Councilor Lynn's position that we do have the right to govern, and I fully support building a regulatory framework around this topic. My question, I guess, or my discussion is around the narrative that's been established here that correlates needle exchange programs with negative public health and public safety impacts, or also suggests that it may cause serious public harm. And we just heard a lot of viewpoints and evidence-based data that contradicted that. And I wondered if there could be some discussion around how this language was arrived at, or what data was used to form that position.
Well, I was one who had asked Corporation Counsel to assist with coming up with moratorium language. I did share with him the language that Auburn had used, but also let him know that he was free to come up with whatever language and advice that he felt suited Augusta best. I don't know that there was data relied upon. I think there's certainly a mix of opinion about whether there's harm or potential harm posed by discarded needles in a community. So that's my answer. I don't know whether Corporation Counsel wants to weigh in on any more of that or his take on drafting it.
Certainly, Your Honor. I mean, most of it was relying upon the information that's been presented to the council over the course of the past probably 2 years of public testimony concerning this specific issue in terms of needles and discarded waste and other issues, and the community concern arising from, sudden discovery or inadvertent discovery of discarded and disposed needles. It wasn't necessarily reliant upon a suggestion of, transmission of disease or anything like that, but more to the testimony that was provided earlier tonight by a member of the public relating to the, psychological impacts that can sort of have.
So would it be fair to say that it was based solely on opinion?
I don't think it would be based solely on opinion as much as information presented to the council in terms of personal experiences.
Understood.
I mean, so.
Councilor Morse-Polly?
Yeah, I just want to speak to that. I did review this prior to, and I didn't find a problem with the language. And I think one of the reasons I didn't find a problem with the language is that any type of medical waste is a public health concern. So when we're talking about used needles, we're talking about public medical waste. The other piece too, and I think somebody spoke to it here tonight, and I really appreciate that, is the psychological harm of getting stuck by a needle. It may not actually lead to a bloodborne pathogen, but it also goes to, well, if my 3-year-old got stuck and I have to wait that 3 months to figure out whether or not they have a life-changing disease, that is a psychological harm to that parent, to that grandparent, and can go on down the line. I also think that when we're looking at the safety, I have had individuals who have talked to me about having to have the police come to a grade school to pick up needles off the playground before the school opened. To me, that is a public safety concern on multiple different levels. So when I looked at it and I thought about the examples that I've heard and the things that I've spoken to, I think that that's really where this has a broad meaning to it when we talk about it. We're not just talking about somebody getting stuck and having a bloodborne pathogen that they receive from that, but all of the other things that go into that. So perspective is a lot of what we have that we're working with here. But thank you for the question. I do appreciate that.
Thank you for your response. But I think you misunderstood my question. My question is really about the correlation between these programs and significant public health and safety concerns. I understand what medical waste is, and I understand the psychological impact and so forth that you outlined, but what this is suggesting is that these programs contribute to or cause an increase in those concerns. And the data that we heard, the evidence that we heard, the research that we heard contradicts that. So my point was, do we have other evidence that we've considered when forming this narrative to make that correlation?
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's obviously a significant public health concern in this community. The moratorium is designed to put a pause on the further expansion of that, so that, to my way of thinking, the moratorium is the easy part of this. I mean, the difficult part will come after this, when we start talking about policy and evaluating the competing positions on needle exchanges and SSP operations, and whether or not we should, and if so, regulate them in some fashion. So I think there is a fair debate about the degree of risk or harm there is in a community. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but I certainly think the community thinks that there is, and I think this is a way to respond to that in a responsible way without affecting the existing operations while we undertake that consideration. And we'll hear more from them, I'm sure, as if and when this moves forward. Councilor Michoud.
All right, it's time to dummy down now. I've heard a lot of testimony, but, harm reduction. There is a vessel that we're talking about that to me is an oxymoron. I just don't know how that's harm reduction, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And like the young lady said earlier, a 3-year-old in Brewer walking in the park was stuck with a needle. That, to me, raises a concern. I am very, very much in favor of this moratorium, and I wish it could go a lot farther than that. I just don't know how accessible these needles are to everybody. It just blows my mind. The needles are more accessible than the substances they're using, and it's harder to take the needle out of somebody's hand than it is the substances that they're putting in these needles. It just, I'm sorry, I'm just taking this a little bit personal, but I just really don't understand it. Maybe the moratorium, I will pay very close attention to it if it passes and see, but I am very, I can't vote to say no to this to potentially allow more of these facilities until there's some kind of regulation or something. This is way above my pay grade and everybody else's. And again, we heard testimony and facts and this and that, and I'm one that has become very cynical. I don't believe anything unless I actually see it. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Councilor Gary Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to first start by saying that I support the regulation of certain service programs across the state of Maine and have dedicated part of my career to ensuring that happens at the state level. So I just want to start from that premise. I also want to speak to the amount of time that we've talked about a moratorium. We've spent the last couple of weeks debating this moratorium, and I think that what the community is asking for right now is solutions to improperly disposed of syringes. And I wish that we had spent the last 4 weeks talking about solutions to improperly disposed of syringes. Many of those solutions were presented to the council tonight. There are no pending applications before the Maine CDC's governance board on syringe service programs for the city of Augusta. And I want to be really clear, I can 100% promise that there will not be any new syringe service programs in the city of Augusta. For the very long foreseeable future, I am in contact with every syringe service program in the state of Maine, and absolutely no one wants to come to this city right now because they have watched the last 6 months of what has happened to me and to my staff and to our volunteers and to our participants. We have been publicly harassed, criminally stalked, and belittled for hours on end by people who do not understand our work. And I promise nobody else wants to take that. I'm probably the only person in the entire state of Maine who would sit here and take that over and over and over again in service to our community, because I believe that harm reduction is about reducing the harm of substance use for both the individual and the community at large. That is why harm reduction programs for decades have been deeply committed to both the individual level and the public health and the community level. This is not about harming the community. We do not want improperly disposed of syringes in the community. When I first got on council, we advocated for, this council discussed needing publicly disposable boxes in the community. That was in 2021. What we heard back then was that we didn't want boxes in the community because they would look bad. I argue that improperly disposed of syringes look bad. I wish that we would table this right now, that we would go to another informational meeting next week. We would edit the whereas information to balance the public conversation, because we have heard from both sides. I agree with that, that some people believe that this evidence around certain service programs is not true. We've also heard from another side that the evidence around certain service programs is rock solid evidence for, decades across not just the United States, but across the world. And this whereas clause does not balance that. It seeks to lay all of the improperly disposed of syringe waste in our community at the feet of certain service programs. And I think that we should take a moment, if this is about pausing, we should take a moment to get that whereas clause correct, and also talk about regulation of syringe service programs. Or the Auburn ordinance that just passed a couple of weeks ago is a very thoughtfully crafted piece of legislation that I would vote in favor of tonight, to regulate syringe service programs in this city. My question to legal is, there's been a lot of talk around this not impacting syringe service programs that are currently operating. I would ask legal, there's language in the moratorium that talks about expansion of services. Could you please explain how you define that? Would there be any concern of a syringe service program that's currently operating, say, expanding to hire more staff, or expanding to do outreach services, or expanding to increase naloxone distribution, et cetera? Or how will we know how that we can operate within the boundaries of the law?
Certainly. So generally, when we refer to expansion in this context, we're talking about physical expansion of the footprint of the use, rather than, the expansion of specific services or, the hiring of more employees. So if you were to think of it in the context of like a cannabis facility or something like that, an expansion of the use would be a physical expansion of the retail store, not necessarily hiring 3 more staff as bud tenders, and that at least would be my interpretation of the way the moratorium's drafted.
Okay, so if a program is using a room in the building, but want to expand to 2 rooms in the building, would that be an appropriate expansion? Because the footprint of the building doesn't change?
Are the rooms all currently owned by the same entity?
Yep.
I don't know that I would regard that as an expansion if the entire operation is happening within there.
Okay. Follow-up question. I've heard a lot about the idea of somebody coming to the city with like a backpack and doing unregulated syringe exchange. Could you speak to the part of the moratorium that you believe addresses that concern?
I think that would be the establishment of a new syringe services operation or a new needle exchange.
So you are correlating both certified syringe exchange and uncertified syringe exchange as the same?
I believe they would both be covered under this moratorium.
Okay. All right, I'm done for now. Thank you.
And it would also include, would expansion include the establishment of a mobile operation by an existing provider?
So if there's an existing provider and they're now doing it outside of the bounds of their
But not doing a mobile operation?
I mean, I think it's an interesting hypothetical. I don't know.
Well, I thought that was the intention, that was going to be covered as well.
It's difficult because it's not currently a regulated use within the city. So were you to have it be something that requires a brick and mortar structure and then expanding to a mobile use already within the city's ordinances, it would be easier to say that that constitutes an expansion. I think if the syringe service program or the needle exchange was operated within a physical location and then started being operated in multiple different locations, that would be considered an expansion. So I think if you were to regard a mobile unit as a new location, then that could be considered a physical expansion.
Certainly be off-site.
Be covered, yeah.
Yeah. Who haven't I called on yet? Councilor Lilly, down the end.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a question for Councilor Gary Allen, if you're open to answer it. You were explaining the difference between this moratorium versus the one in Auburn. I'm not that familiar with the one in Auburn. Do you mind expanding on that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm talking about two different policies. So there was a moratorium in Auburn, but they actually just finished their ordinance in Auburn and it passed a couple of weeks ago. So their ordinance sets up a licensing regulatory system in the city following Maine CDC guidelines. There's some zoning in there as well as a requirement to be both certified by the Maine CDC as well as licensed by the city. I can send that around for a review by the full council.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start by saying that I appreciate the way that the council can come to a complicated discussion. I think that's something I consistently really appreciate about this group. I agree with my fellow councilors that we are conflating the issue of medical waste and public safety on the one hand with the distribution of medical tools on the other, which is what syringe service programs do. The syringes that they give out are not inherently dangerous. The danger lies with a discarded syringe that has been used, which is outside of the scope of their control. I come at this from a few different positions. One is that logic position that I think this is a conflation of the issue and not actually targeted to solve the issue that we all agree is happening, that we don't want improperly discarded syringes, and I am very happy to continue that conversation with the council. The second, I think it's no surprise to anyone that I am a very data-driven person, and there's extensive data accessible about the impact of syringe service programs on improperly discarded syringes online. The worst case scenario is that there is no correlation. Most research, including the most recent, I'm sorry, I forgot to write down if it was a meta review, but large-scale study was Mackey et al. 2023 from the Department of Veterans Affairs that found HIV and Hep C are both rising in the U.S., including in Maine. But SSPs, the benefits are sufficient to support the implementation whenever possible, and there is no correlation to increased use, unsafe disposal, or crime rates in the neighborhoods where syringe service programs are implemented. That, to me, says that this is not the step to fix the issue that we all agree on, and that we can use our time to focus on the issue we all agree on. The last kind of leg of this stool for me is that this is a very personal issue for me. I met a good friend of mine when we were teens who, someone mentioned tonight that HIV is a lifestyle choice. That is not always true. My friend was born HIV positive because of choices that his biological parent made. And if his parent, we're talking about levels of risk here. It's incredibly small, the level of risk to be infected by a discarded syringe. It is somewhat small to be born to a parent that is HIV positive, but that is the experience that I have seen happen. At the time, my friend expected his life expectancy to be 30 years old, and I am incredibly grateful that medical knowledge has expanded exponentially in our lifetimes, but that was not a given. So for programs like this that could have changed the outlook of my friend's life, because even though medicine has come so far, he still has significant impacts to his day-to-day life that go beyond what I can imagine having to live with. That, to me, does not discount the impact to other people. It doesn't discount the psychological fear that people feel when they see a needle. It doesn't discount the psychological weight that happens as you are going through blood tests if you have an improper needle stick. But the actual harm to this individual's life, I think, can be addressed by syringe service programs. Individuals like my friend can have a significantly reduced chance of being born this way by things like syringe service programs. So I cannot vote in favor of this moratorium tonight for those three legs of that stool for myself. I thank the council for being able to talk about these things, being able to hold the complex needs of our community all at once, and look forward to continuing the discussion of how to make sure that our city is safe and clean and enjoyable, which, to be frank, is my experience of our city. I have 2 young children here. I utilize our public spaces, and I don't discount that other people have different experiences than I do, but my experience of our city is that it is beautiful, it is well maintained, and it is safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a couple things. First, I just want to say that, my thoughts, my opinion here is based on a lot of concerns expressed from residents that aren't schooled or aren't scientists or aren't providers. They're scared and fearful of discarded needles. So, that being said, I want to clarify that this is, and I want to ask Corporation Counsel, this is not stopping any current practice.
No, this should not have any impacts on
This moratorium is not a moratorium on harm reduction, but specific to needle exchange. Harm reduction is a broad group of tools. This is one aspect of it, so it doesn't impact harm reduction.
I can't say that it doesn't.
Well,
impact
it
harm
may
reduction, but certainly
in
not
the terms
intended.
of needle exchange, but the rest of harm reduction that goes with that, which is several other parts of it, it's not a moratorium on harm reduction. Is that clear?
Correct.
Okay. The only other thing I wanted to say is, and this is, I've usually been very careful in 9 years not to be critical, but I am going to express some frustration. This has been before us for weeks, and I just want to say to my other councilors that if you had problems with the language, I would be willing to listen to amended offerings of additional or change in language. This is the time to do that, to criticize the Corporation Counsel for the language. We've had this language for weeks. And I think if it was a time to offer an amendment, tonight would be the time to offer that amendment. So just a point of frustration there. I just wanted to get that out. This is a tough subject. It's the 11th hour, and I think we just need to move on it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Gary Allen, I know you wanted to table, but did you make a motion to table?
Yes. Motion to table.
Seconded.
Motion tabled by Councilor Gary Allen, seconded by Councilor Sinkowitz. Discussion on motion to table. Motion to table only.
Is there discussion? There is a discussion on motion to table, right? Yes, okay. I'm just asking for another week. Give me a week to come to the table to an informational meeting with an amendment and also the ordinance from Auburn for a discussion of both things and to find a balance between everything that we have heard. I agree, Councilor Lind, that in normal circumstances, I would come before you tonight with an amendment. I am asking for a little bit of grace based on my personal circumstances. Being in Boston with my son, I did not have time to draft an amendment to the language. And so I take responsibility for that while also asking that the council let us have one more conversation and then move forward with whatever comes out of that conversation.
All right. I didn't want to interrupt you. I should not have allowed discussion on a motion to table.
I thought so. Sorry.
But I didn't want to, my mistake. There's been a motion table that's been seconded. Call for vote.
Counselor Austin.
Yes.
Counselor Judkins.
Nay.
Counselor Mishu,
Nay.
Counselor Lind,
Nay.
Counselor Gary Allen,
Yes.
Counselor Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Counselor Morris Polly,
Nay.
Counselor Lilly.
Yes.
Yes, it was a yes. Ooh.
Nay.
Here.
Nay.
So motion to table fails.
All right, so we're back to the motion as originally presented without an amendment so far. Further discussion? Do I see a hand? Counselor Judkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a tough subject. I know that, we can look at data. Is this worthwhile or not? Does harm reduction have a value? Probably does. We can talk about that, the needle exchange has had a net positive effect, that they've taken back in many more than they've given out. But an indisputable fact does not escape me that you can go so many places 2 minutes from this building, and you can still see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these syringes scattered about. They're coming from somewhere. I'm not being accusatory that it's coming from these exchanges, but they are coming from somewhere. And as much as the efforts are from this needle exchange to pick up more than they give out, there's somebody else giving out a whole hell of a lot more. They are on our streets. They're there. You can't, it's not somebody's imagination. So I think we need to take this pause to try to find out, really, then where are they coming from? If not you, then who? Why? Maybe it's, I don't know, but we need to figure it out. We need some time to figure it out. And no offense to the good counselor, but I guess I am also sitting kind of wondering that with your direct involvement with an organization that does this, should you be voting on this or should you be recusing yourself?
Well, I think that's something that she'll have to think about for herself.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask legal counsel for advice?
You may.
Legal counsel, do I have any ethical obligation or financial benefit from voting on this policy?
So given that there'd be no pecuniary impact to your organization, I don't believe there's a statutory conflict of interest. And since there's, as you said, no pending applications or intended needle exchange programs that would be opening that would be prevented from operating in the city, that would detract from your funding opportunities or anything else, I don't think there's necessarily the appearance of conflict. I think obviously there are personal and positional issues, but I think in the context of a legislative discussion rather than a contract award or funding opportunity, this wouldn't rise to the level of a disqualifying conflict of interest.
Follow up?
Sorry.
Proceed.
Would a person who sells houses for a living have to recuse themselves from a discussion around a planning board or something related to selling houses in the city?
She's not asking me.
I'm asking legal.
It would depend on the circumstances.
Regulatory, I don't know, regulating selling houses.
No, I don't think so in the context of a legislative discussion. Certainly were there to be, an RFP or something like that for brokerage services, that would be an issue. But in the context of the development of city policy, oftentimes you want people with that type of expertise to participate.
So, council, would you say that somebody who has an extensive history of doing regulatory around harm reduction services or is a public health expert might want to weigh in on services related to their expertise?
I think that that's a reasonable expectation.
Thank you. I will be voting on this tonight.
Personally, I consider myself pretty empathetic, and I think I can read people and whatever, but I just can't understand a well-founded reason to object to a moratorium, where a moratorium just pauses what's already in place, doesn't impact existing operations, doesn't go into all the other types of harm reduction that any organization might engage in. We're talking strictly about needles. I think it's indisputable that we have a considerable amount of public concern in this community that deserves to be addressed. People talk about other ways to deal with this, and people talk about the data. Well, that's the next step under the protection of a moratorium. We'll have those discussions, but I hear the objections, but I don't understand them, and I apologize if I don't. It seems like a no-brainer to me. Councilor Sienkiewicz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that, that perspective, because I think the way that I'm thinking about this is it could cut both ways in terms of there is a part of this that to me, it does not matter if the moratorium passes because it won't impact what's happening in our city. But then on the flip side of that, why are we doing a moratorium if it won't impact what's going on in our city, if it's not aimed at fixing the problem that we have? And so I think a slight skew of perspective, it's the same thing, but seeing it from different angles. And I think the main concern that I am coming with to the moratorium is cementing further the narrative that syringe service programs are the problem, when in fact the research shows they are part of the solution to the issue that we're facing. And that is why I can't support a moratorium. It's not that I find it, I don't find it to be offensive or the issue itself is an emotional one, but the proposal of the moratorium is not, if that makes sense. It's getting very late, but I appreciate the opening for the conversation. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion from the council? All right. Let's move it to a vote.
Counselor Austin.
No.
Counselor Judkins.
Yay.
Counselor Mishu.
Yes.
Counselor Lind.
Yay.
Counselor Gary Allen.
No.
Counselor Sienkiewicz.
No.
Counselor Morris Polly.
Yay.
Counselor Lilly.
Yay.
Good. Motion passes, 5 in favor, 3 opposed.
All right. That moves us to new business ordinances being read for the first time, no vote required. Those include 26123, 26124, 26125, which takes us to the back page of our agenda. And before we consider a motion to go into executive session, let's deal with communications. Are there any committee reports? Councilor Lind.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Bicyclist and Pedestrian Safety Committee met last night here in City Hall. I just want to read the names of this committee. I've only got 2 more meetings, and they're pretty heavy hitters. I just want to kind of acknowledge the brain power on this committee. I won't include myself in that category, but we have the police chief, Kirsten Brewer, who, if you know, Kirsten's been working in this area for about 20 years. Dwayne Scott, a retired professional engineer from DOT. Nash Callahan, a business owner of one of the best bicycle repair shops probably in central Maine. Heather Cable, an accomplished distant runner. Rebecca Buchanan, who brings a complete perspective to the to the committee. Parker O'Brien, a PE. Tyler Pierce, a PE. Leslie Jones, also a professional engineer. So you're sitting in a room full of engineers, and I have the pleasure of working with them. We worked and talked about the Maine DOT Planning Partnership Initiative. That is the effort to put together a 10-year plan for the city, addressing public safety in terms of bicycle and pedestrian traffic. There will be a public meeting in September at Bucher, date to be determined. When that comes out, we'll push that out for everyone. We went over the current construction. Everybody knows about Bangor Street. That's kind of evident. That is intended to increase pedestrian safety. Water Street, I've got to shout out to the staff and everyone dealing with that. Those bump outs are terrific. I do want to talk about Coney Road, the sidewalk that's out there. You know, we talked about that, and a lot of people did not envision that that would be used. One of our board members lives there, and it isn't even paved, and she said it's heavily used right now. It's become a main route for people from Mayfair using that sidewalk. So Councilor Junkins was pushing that, and that's his ward. It was refreshing news to hear that. And we had a booth down at the Fun Day for anyone that went down there. I do want to say in October, we have a non-voting member. I'm going to be reaching out to the superintendent, trying to get a high school student on the committee because they are walking a lot and it's a different perspective. One of our board members, Parker O'Brien, had a lot of email exchange with Matt Nazar about bicycle racks downtown. So he's been pursuing that. Again, an engineer's view of that. Traffic Calming Committee, a shout out to the chief and those on there. They've done 8 traffic studies, 3 pending. And for people watching, Augusta is taking speeding seriously. There's been 2,100 stops this year. It's a 100% increase over last year. The main topic really that we spent most of the time talking about and is extremely confusing and fast moving, and we're going to dedicate our entire meeting in October to, is the subject of e-bikes. Again, I don't want to get into it right now. It's too complex. There are so many different modalities surrounding this particular item. We have some committee members that would like to ban e-bikes from sidewalks. Others want to pursue education. So Nash Callahan, who owns a bike shop downtown, is going to prepare. We're going to spend most of October talking about that. And I do want to encourage anyone on the council that's interested in taking over this committee. I think it's a great committee and it's doing really good work for the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Morse-Polly.
Yes, thank you. Over the last couple of weeks, we've had 2 meetings of the rebrand committee, with the most recent one being last night. We reviewed some preliminary designs, and we also addressed kind of some redefining of our ideas. And so we are waiting for round 2 designs, and I'll fill you in when we have those. Thank you.
Thank you. Other committee reports? Before we go to announcements, I'll ask the city manager if he has a report.
Not necessarily an extensive report, Your Honor, but I would like to highlight in this late hour, hopefully there's still some people watching, and if you are, tell your friends to watch the rerun on CTV7, because this is, I want to talk about the mill rate that came out this week that's been posted on social media, and our marketing and communications director has been pushing that information out. We do have our mill rate set for our FY27, which is the budget we're in. It's at 14.23. Originally, I have on the screen that I'm going to kind of go through the sheet that the folks at home can see as well. As you know, we went through the budget process estimating what the mill rate would be after the revaluation, and I'll get into that, the particulars of that. So when we went through when we went through the budget process, we were estimating a mill rate of about 15. So based upon our value, all of the work has been done by our consultant KRT with both commercial, residential, and real property. So we're able to set that mill rate. In looking at this tax rate sheet, and this is similar to what we used, I would actually say identical to what we used during the budget cycle, except for at the bottom where you see on the left-hand side the tax rate and the valuation divided by 1,000. That's the line above. So at the top, expenditures, the green highlight. That's what the council voted on and agreed to with our expenditures that went to The education portion of that, where you see at the top, that hasn't changed. That went to the voters and was approved as well for our overall expenditures and revenues in the second box there as well. So that was already in place. Nothing of that changed during the revaluation process. Our needs from taxes haven't changed. That was voted on by the majority of the council as well and approved at that 5% that you see overall increase. It's the valuation divided by 1,000 that you see that I really want folks to focus on the second to last column down, if you will. If you look last year, our FY26 budget, our valuation, it's abbreviated because it's divided by 1,000, but was $1.699 billion in the city. So all of our value, our residential, our commercial, our real property, all of the things that go into that, minus our exemptions, was $1.699 billion. And that gave us that tax rate at 24.40, if you see in that first column. Slide over to now, what we're addressing in our current budget, FY27. Based on the revaluation of all of the properties, our value increased from 1.699 billion to 306 billion in the city. So that was all of the work that they've done. And again, that's the product of not doing a revaluation for many, many years. But our overall valuation went from the 1.69 billion to almost 3.1 billion. So that's where the higher value we are overall as a city with the properties that we have, both commercial, residential, real property, et cetera, that's where the mill rate, the higher that is, the lower the mill rate is. So that's where we landed on, and the hard work that the assessor has been doing with KRT. The next step in that is Kelly is going to get to work and has been working very hard in conjunction with the assessor over the weekend. She's going to make sure all of the properties are entered into Munis. We pray that there's no glitches like we've had in the past with our software company, but she's going to work real hard, and we have some people on standby to get that so we can get taxes committed in a timely fashion with the assessor. Last year, to put it in perspective, tax bills went out the second week of August. That's where we're headed to, the second week. So we're a little bit behind with getting the tax bills out. And we've heard from the public. We've listened to the comments. We've listened to the calls. What you'll find that we passed an order a couple of months ago, 26006. I say we, council, you, passed the order that taxes would be, the first tax bill would be due on September 24th. That's not going to change. However, as standard practice, and part of this order is interest starts the day after tax bills are due, September 24th. What I'm going to recommend and bring to the council next week in our informational meeting is that we can have a discussion over it, but you discuss the order, and we're looking at extending the interest accruals, if you will, when interest will kick in until December 1st. So folks will have time to get their bills. If they don't pay exactly on September 24th, they'll have extra time before that interest accrual. So that's what we're going to recommend, that we've looked at the timeline. That will give folks that extra time to, again, tax bills are still due on the 24th, but you're not going to pay any interest until December 1st. So we'll bring that to you next week and have a further discussion that the public can be aware of. And the other thing that we're going to be doing as well is our tax club. We're going to be extending that as well for folks. So there'll be ample time for that to happen as well. So more to come. We're going to keep pushing this information out. I highly encourage people to call when you have questions. I've had some really, really good discussions with some folks who I know, in the public, to explain how the revaluation worked and where their property landed compared to where it was before and where it is now. And I know the assessor's always available, so I do encourage anybody, if it's on your mind and you want to talk, give me a call, give the assessor's office a call, and we'll be more than happy to work through that and explain it a little bit better. So I think that's it in a nutshell, Your Honor, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy.
Council Lynn?
Once the dust settles and things kind of normalize for the staff, I think it would be beneficial for the public and for us to understand the impact on the reval on commercial and residential. You know, we had talked about that for years, that it's going to be a shift. Not now. There's enough on the plate right now for the staff to get this going. But I think down the road, understanding that shift would be really important for people to.
Yeah, and that's some of the discussions I'm having with folks now. While some residential properties did go down, the majority of them went up, and we saw a good amount of commercial properties go down because of the valuation. But we can certainly bring that up again.
That will explain the impact. You
Yeah.
know, as an example, and I mean, mine went up significantly higher than 5%, and so I try to explain to people there was a shift, but I don't have any information in front of me.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have that information and say there was a shift from commercial to residential, unfortunately, so.
Yes.
Yep.
Any other questions for the manager? Cover it? Yep. All right. Any announcements? Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Lithgow Library annual book sale is next week. It generally runs Thursday through Saturday. This week they have added a preview Wednesday evening at 4:30. You can pay $20 to get in early and get access to the books at that time. At the same time, Thursday, there will be a bake sale happening, also some potted plants, and that is first come, first serve. All proceeds go to the Friends of the Lithgow Library that support the museum and park passes, the events that go on there, and the library's ability to purchase new books. I also would remind everyone that summer reading is wrapping up, and there are plenty of events left to attend. There's also a bike draw provided by the Masons, I believe. I might get that wrong, for kids that have completed their summer reading. So make sure to turn in those bingo sheets. And the last thing that I wanted to highlight was a really incredible article in Central Maine this week, I believe it was. Our library director, Sarah Schultz-Nielsen, had donated her kidney to her brother in the month of June, I believe. And I would encourage everyone to go take a read through that article. It highlights one of the many wonderful staff and the caliber of staff that we have in the city of Augusta. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Councilor Mishu.
Real quickly, a week from Sunday, the August 16th, at the Augusta Civic Center, the 10th annual Greater Augusta Back to School Program backpack giveaway. It will be at the Civic Center from 1 to 3. We'll have all kinds of backpacks. You show up, you'll get one, and we have all kinds of vendors. Hannaford will be with us again this year, and all kinds of vendors for all kinds of great things. So, August 16th, 1 p.m. at the Civic Center. Thank you.
Further? All right. So we're at the point in the agenda where we would consider a motion to go in executive session, and that appears on our agenda as 26126.
Mayor?
Councilor Lynn.
Move we head into executive session to discuss a real estate matter under the authority of 1 Maine Revised Statute, subsection 4056C.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councilor Sinkowitz. Discussion? Please ask for a vote.
Counselor Austin.
Yes.
Counselor Judkins.
Yes.
Counselor Mishu.
Yes.
Counselor Lind.
Yay.
Counselor Gary Allen.
Yes.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Counselor Morris Polly.
Yay.
Counselor Lilly.
Yay.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right. Councilor Gary Allen, are you going to join us for the executive session?
I will not be joining you. My son is asking for me. He's in a lot of pain right now, and I'm going to go be with him.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. For everybody else, we're going to retire to the adjoining conference room for our executive session. We will come back into public session to deal with Order 26127 and then adjourn our business meeting here in the chamber. So with that, good night. If you're leaving. What?
We'll come out and vote on that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to come out and vote.
Don't worry, 90 people are still watching you.
All right, we're back. So, last order on tonight's agenda is 26127.
Move for passage, Mr.
By
Mayor.
Councilor Lynn, seconded by Councilor Mishu. Discussion about the authorization for this conveyance. Any discussion? Hearing none? Mr. Corporation Counsel, would you please call the roll?
Certainly, Your Honor. Counselor Austin?
Yes.
Counselor Judkins?
Yay.
Counselor,
Yes.
Yay.
Counselor Lynn? Counselor
Yes.
Gary Allen, Counselor Senkowitz? Counselor Morris Paul?
Yay.
Counselor Lilly?
Yay.
And Councilor Gary Allen has left the meeting.
Counselor Gary Allen has left, so the motion carries 7 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. There are no further business before the council tonight. We are adjourned.